Teaching fly fishing always seemed to look a certain way. You take your fly rod, do a basic kind of casting movement that sort of look like a fishing scenario, and after that you move on and try to go out and fish and catch a fish. It almost makes it look like fly casting is this boring threshold that you need to get past to be able to go out and fish. If you want to become good at what you're doing, you have to put down thousands of hours, in this instance fly fishing. If you put a certain amount of that into developing your fly casting, those hours are well spent, I can tell you. Today we're in the Icelandic Highlands and Lake Fellsendavatn, and here I'm gonna show some casting practices in how you can develop your fly casting. Things that you can, like before a trip or something, you can go out on your grass field at home and try. You can do this for every day. One drill, which is quite easy if you're familiar with fly casting already, but over the years has helped me a lot when I want to improve my casting, is, it sounds very simple, but just with 7 meters of line outside the rod tip, do the casting movement. Just lock in your fingers and cast with one arm and just practice that movement. This is something that you kind of forget when you're only going out fishing. Just a basic casting movement with one hand. And try to make the loops as good as possible. What this exercise will do is that it will help you build that muscle memory that you need to be able to keep that casting motion right and to keep the tension in the line and rod throughout the casting movement. Next exercise that I wanted to do is that you do the same thing. You have the same 7 meters of line locked in, and I kind of do this at all times, but practice to look at your backcast. And when you do that, I want you to have a controlled line that straightens out and still looks nice with that little bit more open position. So instead of standing and casting like this, that you have a bit of more open body posture to be able to look over your shoulder and see your back cast. Why I want you to be able to do a good cast with that you have the visuals of looking at the back cast is because when you start practicing longer distances later in your fly casting, then the back cast is so important that you get that back cast right and you get it straight in the air and straightening out all the way before you go the other direction. That is going to be crucial. What is called creep is something that you don't want to have in your fly cast, and that is when your fly line is not turned over properly before you go the other way. So practicing to look at your back cast, I'm not saying that you have to do it for every cast you make, but to be able to do it without it affecting your cast, that you move the body in a different way that makes your cast bad, is a valuable thing to know. So okay, Robert, these early drills or the warm-up has been easy for you. Well, let's step it up a notch, and we stay with the short line still. We're not going into long distance casting yet. What we're gonna do is that we're gonna try to get close to a 90-degree angle down to the water and do the casting here. Without touching the water, like I did there, practice the timing and the accuracy of your casting stroke to prevent it touching the water in both directions. I have a little bit of a breeze helping me now. I did record this earlier when the wind didn't start already. With a shorter line, it's easier. So if you struggle with this, you can just shorten the line a little bit when you practice this. And with time, you're able to extend this. It's a great cast to be able to do in certain scenarios with narrow, a lot of overhanging trees or whatever. What this practice does show is that if your timing is wrong and your line tension throughout the cast is not right, it's gonna show a lot more clearly here. You get the receipt if your cast is in good timing and good precision. If this practice goes well on some days and some days not, it may be because of the wind, because what the wind does is that it helps the line to stay in the air. Even a small breeze makes a big difference compared to if it's no wind at all. So in a windy day, you can be able to have a longer line out and practice. And in a calm day, you may have to shorten it a little bit. Next thing we're gonna do is to take out some line off the reel and practice the double haul. Double haul is gonna be something that as soon as you start to do a little bit longer cast, you want to involve your other hand in getting that line speed and line tension throughout the cast. So just practice to shoot some line and to carry from short line to longer with using the double haul. And here I like to, just as a personal thing, to look in the backcast and just practice the double haul back and forth. One bonus practice that you can do if you're more experienced when you do the double haul practice is to try to let go of line in both directions. So when you let go of line, you can just, instead of just letting line slide out your fingers in your forward cast, you can as well do it in your back cast. This will make your casting a lot faster. So if you're in like in streamer fishing, saltwater fishing, and you want to do a quick presentation on some distance, it's gonna be valuable that you're able to shoot release line there, release line there, release line there, and then you have a long cast. It's gonna go a lot faster if you're able to practice that, and you have that in you when it's time to hit the water. So that's a practice I like to include here for a little bit more advanced. This thing with releasing line in the backcast, it's not something I only do for my quick presentations. It's something I do for all my casts, especially when it comes to some distance, when I want to reach far. Because when you let go of some line there, especially in that last backcast before you send it, every little distance, like amount of line that you can get outside of your rod tip, and every little percentage of weight that it adds to the line that you have in the air will help you to launch it further and better in your last forward cast there. You all want that satisfying thing when it's just flying out there. And I promise you, if you get that in, that you can release line in your back cast, it will help you to send it further and better. It's so satisfying. So you should give it a go. And here we come into the bulk of the practice. If I do a session of fly casting practice, if the casting feels good especially, my practice comes down to distance practice. I try to make as long casts as possible. I encourage that when you're out on the grass, try to cast as far as you can. You can even put out a measuring tape and try to measure a cast as far as possible. What happens when you practice casting a long line is that when you later step down and cast a short line, it's gonna feel much more in control, because you're pushing your outer limit of how much line you can handle. Your comfort zone, where the zone that you can easily handle a line, it also grows. So try to push it as far as you go. It doesn't have to be pretty here. It can go wrong, it can get tangles. It's fine, because we're just practicing. Don't use your finest leader here and your brand new fly line, because you'll get tangles, you'll get knots, things will happen. But it will help you develop your casting. Before, when there was no wind, I recorded a great practice that I've used over the years, and you can implement this in any part of the practice, like from the first exercise to the last. And that is to cast, and just in the back cast, because it's so important that you get it straight, just stop at your back position and let the line fall and look how the line is landing on the ground. If it's straight or if it's curved, it's gonna tell you about how your trace of the rod tip in the air is performing, how straight it is. So that's a crucial thing that you can trace with your rod tip in a straight line in the air. And that's gonna tell very clearly when you let that, when there is no wind, when you let that line fall down on the ground. I have so many people that when they're casting, they go in around themselves in the backcast. So the line is gonna land in a big bow behind them when they pause there. So then try to prevent that, like thinking that if you have that example, that you try to almost like push out here, that you pretend to scrape on a wall here with the rod tip instead of leaving the wall in the end, that you are tucked into it and stay right there. That's the most common example. I see a lot of people have that curve in. So just let your fly line fall to the ground and see where it ends up and adjust according to the result. Another great method to get a second perspective of the practice than letting it fall down in your backcast is to record your cast, both from the side and in front of you, so you get to see how the rod tip and timing goes in the air. It can be both the close-up of how your rod tip and arm is moving, but from the further perspective as well, with looking at the fly line and the timing when it straightens out. And this is the last practice that will help you a lot with having the feeling of that line tension, and one practice that will easily tell you when you do wrong. This is a brutal practice that if your timing is off, it will just collapse. And that is a pick up and lay down, or pick up and shoot. That meaning that either on grass or on water, that you have the line laying flat, lift up in one go and shoot. And practice making it longer and longer until it collapses. And when it collapses, try to analyze what happens and why. Like there, for example, it didn't go great. That's a awesome practice that helps you both in getting the line off the water, but also the timing in the cast. Because you already have a long line out, it requires a brutal timing to launch everything. So I hope you appreciate the little advice that I gave, and that you give these practices a go. Thanks for watching.